Welcome to Marney Reid Presents Connect to Develop, where we provide insight from healthcare leaders on the hottest topics and trends. Welcome, listeners. I am really thrilled to introduce you to Armen Bakirtzian, CEO and co-founder of Intellijoint Surgical, and, because he just wasn't busy enough, co-founder of Medical Innovation Xchange. Welcome, Armen.
Thanks, Marnie. How are you?
I am excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you these last couple of years through some work we've done together. As someone who's helped conceptualize and build a successful company and create an innovation hub for other entrepreneurs, to workshop and share best practices. Can you share the why of a serial entrepreneur and what is your why?
It's a great question, Marnie. And I think, the why is what really fuels lots of entrepreneurs. It's not an easy journey, we've chosen, and it's the why I think that powers us to get through, the ups and downs of building a company. From my perspective, I've been fortunate to have exposure to the medical industry my entire life. My dad is an orthopaedic surgeon, and I really have the utmost respect for physicians and for orthopedic surgeons. Seeing my dad treat somebody coming in on a wheelchair and walking out is just such a phenomenal power and skill that surgeons have. And, for me, the why was being able to equip my dad with all the tools he needs to deliver the best possible care to his patients. That's what they deserve. That's what my dad wants to do. I know that's what all orthopedic surgeons want to do. And for us, the why is let's give them the best tools so they can do the best job for their patients.
Well, I hope your dad has an ear-to-ear grin listening to this, and I'm sure that he's more than proud of all of your accomplishments. Do you think someone is born with entrepreneurial instincts, or can they develop these skills?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's one actually that I hadn't really asked myself before. Thinking about it, I would say probably both are true. There's probably an amount of instinct that you're born with, but at the same time, I think, there's a lot you can learn. Humans are adaptable. They can really focus on various situations and learn. And as an engineer myself, that's what I was trained in. I think engineering school gives you the ability to learn, or it teaches you how to learn really effectively. So I do think there's an aspect that you're born with. And, thinking back to myself as a child, of course, lots of folks had car washes and lemonade stands, and I was no different. That was an important part of my childhood. And I think, I was always inquisitive. And, I remember learning why there are dimples in golf balls, and that's to help with aerodynamics. And I asked myself once as a kid, hey, why don't they do the underbody of a car using dimples? Because that helps with aerodynamics. And sure enough, a year later, I'd see a commercial for a car company that's offering that type of product or modification to their product. So I think I've always been inquisitive, maybe slightly inventive, but, I think there's a lot people can learn, and being humble enough to learn is critically important, and absorbing as much information as you can throughout your journey and surrounding yourself with excellent people that are going to coach you and mentor you along the way. Because, nobody's perfect. And this is a journey of continuous improvement and continuous learning.
I love that what you talk about is someone who questions. Tell me about the work ethic required of an entrepreneur.
I don't think you can be an entrepreneur without an extremely strong work ethic. This is building something from nothing is extremely difficult. And, it's the why that powers you. It's the work ethic that gets it done. And, from my perspective, Barney, I've had a grueling educational career. I was, in a demanding high school. I was fortunate to be accepted into a very demanding engineering program at the University of Waterloo, a blend of four engineering disciplines all rolled into one. It was an extremely grueling journey that myself and my co-founders went through as part of our engineering degrees. And I think that really trains you. It trains you how to learn. It trains you how to work hard to get the job done. And for us, it was a seamless transition from engineering school to entrepreneurship, and that work ethic stayed with us through the transition. And this is not an easy thing that we've chosen to do. And without work ethic, without grit, without determination, as you said, good ideas will fall to the wayside. It does not happen without execution. It does not happen without grit. I think entrepreneurship and grit are one and the same.
That was a perfect tee up into talking about the journey that you and your co-founders went through. It sounds like engineering school, quite frankly, was a little bit of a boot camp. You all survived together. Walk us through the ideation, the various different phases. So for the entrepreneurs out there who are thinking about building something or maybe in the beginning stages, can you kind of maybe tranche it out into the stages of taking an idea into success?
Yeah, it's a great question, and for sure it's a journey. I mean, one thing I strongly advocate for is before an idea, there must be an understanding of a problem. And in my opinion, ideas that stem from problems are the ones that have the highest likelihood of success in the marketplace because they're satisfying a real need. And IntelliJoint is no different. My dad's an orthopedic surgeon. I was very fortunate as part of my fourth year design project to have access to him. I watched him do a hip replacement, and he was humble enough to say that, I use, my best ability, my training, my judgment to do the best I can for patients, but I'm human. I can make mistakes. And it's really the patients that have to deal with that. So for us, a light went off in our minds to say, hey, this is a problem. Orthopedic surgeons are trying to align implants to a millimeter and to a degree, and they're doing it by eye. And we saw an opportunity to create a technology that helped surgeons like my dad deliver the best possible outcomes for their patients. And part of the understanding for the problem for us was really understanding the breadth of the problem, because at the time, these existing traditional navigation solutions existed, but surgeons like my dad didn't have access to them. My dad's a community surgeon in upstate New York, and doing 25 to 75 joints a year. It's really difficult to have access to the incumbent technologies at the time. So accessibility was really important for us, and we wanted to create a technology that was accessible to all. So whether you're a community surgeon, you're an academic surgeon, you're a Stryker surgeon, a Zimmer Biomet surgeon, whatever you are, whatever approach, we wanted to provide a technology for you. So the understanding of the problem is critically important, which obviously leads to an idea. And then, that's when the real work begins. Turning an idea from concept to reality is very difficult, but it is extremely rewarding. And for us, we really spent a lot of time on building the core technology itself. Understanding the problem fundamentally led us to creating a new technology because what was out there didn't satisfy the needs of orthopedic surgeons, in our opinion. So we went out and built it ourselves. And that takes time. It takes dedication. It takes grit. And product development is, it's a predictable activity. It's a difficult activity. And it's one that requires a lot of thought and a lot of feedback and integration with surgeons, because we're building for surgeons. So it's really the product development, early on. And then once your product is available in the marketplace, it's, how do you scale? How do you scale effectively? Trying to balance all the different demands on resources. So really, if you think about, the creation of a company, to me, revenue is the trigger that splits, the early stage activities to the scale up type activities.
That makes sense. So, really taking time to understand that there is a problem out there that you can solve, then creating the solution, taking a lot of time and not getting maybe too excited and launching too early. But then again, not launching too late. It's not going to be perfect time. Really, figuring out how to get to the revenue portion where you're bringing in revenue. How does one, even go into knowing if they're ready yet to start building this and taking it into a full-fledged business?
I'm shaking my head, Marnie, because being an entrepreneur or being ready to be an entrepreneur, it's like being ready to have kids. I don't think you're ever ready, and you just got to take the plunge. I mean, we, as a group of three founders, and engineers, we tend to analyze things. And we got a fantastic piece of advice early on, which was if you're going to fail fast and move on, do something else. So, although we had a great idea out of college, we wanted to make sure that this was something that's worth dedicating. We didn't know at the time, but now 14 years of our lives trying to bring to market. And for us, it was get confidence from orthopedic surgeons that this is a good idea. And we actually took the approach of trying to get surgeons to convince us that this was a bad idea and we should stop doing it. So over a 4-month span, we were fortunate to meet with 12 orthopedic surgeons, and we tried to get them to tell us that this is bad, guys. You got to stop doing this. And you know what? These surgeons were so humble and were so giving with their time. We just created a strong foundation for the future. These 12 orthopedic surgeons not only helped validate the idea and validate the problem, they also helped us raise money. They helped us with product development. They helped us with clinical validation. They helped us with clinical research. And we started this fresh out of school. We were in our early 20s, and trying to ask investors for cash early on in your 20s to go out and build a business is very difficult. And, it was really the backs of these orthopedic surgeons. We stood on their broad shoulders. They helped us convince these investors that, hey, this is a real problem and this is a fantastic solution. And we're putting our, clinical power behind it, and even putting their money behind it. And I think that was such a great boost of confidence for us early on as founders, but also for the investment community, to part with some cash to really power the company to get to a commercial stage.
Can you walk us through what a pre-revenue stage looks like?
Sure. Yeah. Pre-revenue is, as the name suggests, you're not earning any revenue in the marketplace, but you are funded through investors. So, you'll go through various rounds of financing that will, be on the back of a successful milestone. You'll try and raise enough capital to get you to the next milestone. And these milestones can be product development milestones. They could be, clinical validation milestones. They can be regulatory milestones. A variety of different things would, count, if you will, as milestones. And trying to raise cash to get you to those milestones or those value inflection points is really the name of the game. When you're a pre-revenue company. One of the things that makes it a little bit easier than a commercial stage or a post-revenue company is that the money that you raise is predictable. Right? You raise the cash, it's in your bank, and you've got a runway. You know what your costs are, and you can figure out how much time you have, to get to the next milestone before you run out of cash. So it's really balancing the cash that you have, the milestones that you're trying to achieve, because, in an ideal world, those things line up and you use the cash that you've got to get to a milestone, which allows you to raise the next tranche of cash, which allows you to get to the next milestone, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, as a pre-revenue company, what you're trying to achieve is market access. You're trying to get your product approved in the market. You're trying to get regulatory approval, and ultimately get early adoption. And that's the holy grail when you're a pre-revenue company. And, as you said, you expect things to get easier at that point. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel that way. And, there's the classic saying of how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And, as an early young founder, ignorance is also bliss. That, what's in front of you, but you don't know what's 10 steps ahead of you. And, that can be daunting. It can be encouraging at the same time. So, it's really getting to that next inflection point of value, getting to that next milestone, and ultimately, getting to that first check of revenue. And for us at Intellijoint, the first check we ever received is plaqued, it's mounted on the wall, and it's something we look at even to this day, because that's what we were chasing
awesome.
For the first 6 years of our entrepreneurial lives.
What were the best decisions that you made post-revenue for the company?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, there's lots of decisions that are made, and thinking about this one, Marnie, for us, I think the best decision we made actually spans both stages of our growth, pre-revenue and post-revenue. And that's our mission. When I learned about the opportunities in hip and knee replacement to improve, alignment and outcomes for patients, I was educated by my dad, who's a community surgeon. And like I said, he didn't have access to technology to help him. And, we really thought that was unfortunate. Every patient deserves the best outcome. Every surgeon deserves to have the best tools. And really that led us to create a mission statement that really puts accessibility in the heart of everything that we do. And our mission at Intellijoint is to improve patients' lives by providing every orthopedic surgeon and their care team access to effective and easy to use technology. And it's really that word every that drives us. And I would say, in hindsight, we've been doing this now for 14 years. That word every in our mission statement, I think, is the best decision we made. It powers so many decisions that we make as a company, from our fundraising strategy to our commercial strategy to really everything in between. So, there's been lots of decisions over the years, but really the heart of our decision making stems from our mission, which, of course, was one of the first major decisions that we've made. And it stood the test of time for us, and it drives us day in and day out. And, we want to be able to provide tools to orthopedic surgeons to help every patient. And at the end of the day, that's what drives us.
You talked a lot about scale and the various resources that you now have to allocate and balance. What does, building scale look like? And then, what are the hardest things, as you're growing? And then I believe the company is, out there looking for more funding or even looking to potentially go public. Talk to me about scale.
Yeah, different challenges for different stages. And, when you're pre-revenue, you've got one thing that you're chasing. You want to get your product on the market, and you've typically really shaved as much as you can off of that product, to create what's called an MVP, or a minimally viable product. So, there's laser focus in the earliest stages. You're trying to do one thing and one thing better than everybody else, and you've got, predictable cash because it's from fundraising. But once you are a revenue generating company, the cash in the bank becomes less predictable, right? You're generating revenue, which obviously is exciting. You don't have to sell a share to have cash in the bank. You sell products to have cash in the bank. And obviously that's what, early stage entrepreneurs chase. But that also introduces variability to the overall kind of cash management equation, which makes it more difficult. And once you are out on the market, there's the classic question of, well, what's next? Are you creating other products? Are you going into new markets? Are you going into new verticals? And all of these potential avenues require resources to pursue. So, you've got less predictability in the cash in the bank. You've got more opportunities in front of you, and you have to start making bets on how you're going to continuously grow the business. And for us, tying it back to the mission statement, we've really focused on creating a portfolio of products that's accessible, to every orthopedic surgeon. And one of the things we're really excited about is launching a free version of our most differentiated product, which is Intellijoint View. And that's a strategic decision that we've made that's aligned to our mission and provides, a software that really simplifies a very complex aspect of total hip replacement, which is the relationship between the hip and the spine. And we've made that accessible to all, and not only in the US and Canada, but globally. So, for educational purposes, anyone in the world can have access to View, and to help them learn about the relationship between the hip and the spine and how they're connected, and how you have to plan for a hip replacement based on, what's going on in a particular patient's spine. So it's really the multitude of options that you have as you're scaling to figure out where you're going to place your bets in a place where revenue can be unpredictable. And, for that matter, the world around you can be unpredictable. I don't think anyone saw COVID coming. Nobody saw interest rates. Maybe some people did, but not many saw interest rates and,
There will be a movie
geopolitical
later about the
tensions.
interest rates happening now, I
Oh,
bet.
I'm sure there will be. Maybe more than one. But that's it, right? There's lots of uncertainty. You got to navigate through that uncertainty. You got to manage your cash and try and make thoughtful bets on where you go next.
So, to that point that you made about when you go into a new market or a new vertical or adding products, with the current product you have, the initial product that you launch with, how do you know when you've gotten enough buy-in from the market, when you've crossed that chasm, right? Everyone talks about, that chasm that you have to cross to make sure that you can actually sustain yourself in the market before you go into a different vertical and more product. What are the KPIs that you're measuring before you can take your eye off the complete commercialization of what you have now to be then safely go into the next thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one of the most difficult things to manage in leadership is when do you know that you can, move on is probably not the right word, but kind of add on to what you've got. And I think, for us, it was creating products, additional products that kind of serve the same customer. We launched in 2016 with a posterior hip application. We didn't even have DA at the time. So, for us, the product development exercise was clear. We wanted to launch direct anterior hips. We wanted to create a technology for knees. We wanted to help prepare surgeons for surgery. And that led us to create the portfolio that we have today with View, with Intellijoint Hip and Intellijoint Knee. But to answer your question around, how do you cross that chasm? And, for us, it was a thoughtful approach to the market. There, of course, Intellijoint's not the first orthopedic enabling technology company. And, I mentioned our desire to be accessible to all. And for us, that meant a unique commercialization strategy. So when we launched in 2016, we only launched in 2 cities. And we thoughtfully expanded the cities over time. And now, we're still only in 7 cities across the US. And that was a deliberate choice because we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could cross that chasm. So we took an approach to the market that prioritized depth before breadth, which is different than most MedTech companies, especially ones that are backed by VCs that will go, nationwide as an example and go get all the early adopters with not a lot of evidence to prove that you can cross that chasm. So Intellijoint took a different approach. We focused on a smaller number of cities and we focused on going deep in those cities that we can prove to ourselves and we can prove to our investors that, hey, we can cross that chasm. We can get more adoption than any technology before us. And then, of course, the way you grow is by adding new cities and new geographies. So we think that's a lower risk strategy of growth versus spending tons of cash to get the early adopters all over the US, for example, with minimal evidence on how you get the next category of adopter. And we all know that classic bell curve and, technology in orthopedics is young, it's new. And, I think the adoption of technologies has been fantastic, over the last 10 years or so. But, we'll see what happens next. I think, the ease of use is critically important. We're all challenged with economics and the healthcare delivery side. And, we're really about accessibility and efficiency. And, we have lots of confidence that our product is right sized, that fits the orthopedic market and especially serves, the growing segment of ambulatory surgery centers extremely well with an open platform system. So we see lots of opportunity and potential ahead of us. We've proven our model in the cities that we're in. And now, it's time to open the floodgates.
So enlightening to see how strategic you were about developing that. And I would assume, with something as critical as strong reps and then supply chain, that really sticking to those markets and building that infrastructure was beneficial. What are the
For sure.
best things and the hardest things about being a co-founder and CEO, right? Because it's your baby. That's the co-founder part. The CEO part is it's a business decision. Sometimes people may be telling you your baby's not doing the right thing or is a little bit ugly and needs a cleanup. So what's
Yeah.
the best thing and what's the hardest thing?
Oh, Marnie. I think let's start with the best stuff. I mean, first of all, I get to work with my co-founders, friends of mine from college. And as you said, we formed such a strong relationship being in the trenches throughout our education. And, for the last 14 years, we've been in the trench of entrepreneurship, excuse me. So, being able to go through this journey with great people, a great team is extremely rewarding. And, we took an idea and turned it into a company. And that is such a rewarding experience, not only for the tens of thousands of patients that we've been able to serve and, the positive impact we hope we've had on their lives. It's also the people that are on our team. We've been able to grow the business significantly, over the years, and we employ lots of people. And that is really rewarding, as a CEO or as a member of a community that we care very deeply about. it's important for us to have prosperity for our community and our ecosystem. And I think that's such a rewarding and positive experience of being an entrepreneur is creating something from nothing. It's, don't get me wrong, it's super hard, but the reward is so great. And, the sentiment in our team to have, like I said, tens of thousands of patients. We celebrated 50,000 patients served last year. And
That's
that's a metric.
awesome.
It's great. I mean,
Yes.
we celebrated that and internally, and it's so important to celebrate these wins, right? Because there are so many challenges along the way. You got to be deliberate about the wins, and we share the number of patients served every week, and that's something that our team cares deeply about, and it's one of the most rewarding aspects of doing what we do day in and day out. But of course, there are challenges, right? And nothing worth doing, comes easily. And that's the mindset we have. What we're doing is worth doing. And of course, we've navigated, no pun intended, lots of challenges over the years. And, for me in my position, in between, if you will, our team, everybody that works at Intellijoint and, our board of directors, our shareholders. And, I think managing expectations can be difficult, but at the end of the day, we build strategies, we create plans, and it's my job to ensure that our team executes. And, all of these things don't come easy. And hey, once in a while, you get a massive curveball thrown. And, something like a global pandemic is one of those curveballs. And, that's a huge challenge and a massive stress, not only, for the business itself, but for the people that work at Intellijoint. And there was a lot of uncertainty in March of 2020. And we took the approach of, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And
Yeah.
it's tactics like these that I think really not only helped us survive through these challenges, but we actually thrived in these times. And for example, View was created during COVID. Yeah, as an opportunity to invest in our future. And we took the approach, like I said, of hope for the best and prep for the worst. And we prepped for the worst, and thankfully the worst didn't come. And hey, we had this dry powder that we could deploy thoughtfully, and we deployed it on View. And View was launched not so long after, and it continues to be our most differentiated product. So in times of challenge, there are opportunities, and we were fortunate to have great advice from our board, and we always overcome challenges. Sometimes they seem so daunting when you're looking up at them, but it's one bite at a time, one foot in front of the other. Be gritty, be hardworking, be grounded in your mission, and execute.
You talked about an ecosystem. So, in our remaining time, tell us about the ecosystem you created for other entrepreneurs like yourselves through the Medical Innovation Exchange, so MIX.
Yeah, Mix it's a passion project for us. We, as founders of Intellijoint, and as the company has grown, we've learned a lot. Our team has learned a lot, and that information is so valuable. And I mentioned entrepreneurship is difficult, but it's extremely rewarding, and we want others to follow in the same journey. And really, creating Mix was our way of giving back to the ecosystem and sharing our learnings. We went through the school of hard knocks, if you will, being the oldest company in town. And, we wanted to impart that knowledge on the next generation because, what we do is so rewarding. The patients that we serve is what drives us. And I know there are so many others that are fueled by the same thing. And with a little guidance and a little support, you can get there. And that's what we wanted to create. And right now, Mix is a beautiful 40,000 square foot facility housing 7 companies, including Intellijoint. And we're all under the same roof and we help each other out. We don't have mentors in the building. We keep our costs extremely low. Sounds pretty startup-y, right? And,
Love
we
it.
just help each other. We
Hopefully,
pay it
not
forward.
scrimping on the coffee.
Coffee is the lifeblood of entrepreneurs, Marnie.
Good to hear. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. So nice getting to know you on all of these different levels Armen. For the listeners out there, if you want to connect with Armen or learn more about MIX or Intellijoint Surgical, please check out his bio in the show notes. And thank you again for your time.
The pleasure was mine, Marney. You're a champ. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Connect to Develop. You can find more interviews and Marney's Minutes on my YouTube channel at Marney Reid Presents.